The palace of King Therion shone under the twin suns of Viridian. Its towers reached high into the sky, glinting like silver in the bright light. The streets below were filled with flying vehicles, bustling merchants, and citizens who moved quickly through the vibrant city. Yet inside the palace, a different world existed, a world of silence, strict rules, and constant fear for one delicate life. Princess Liara, the king's only daughter, lay on a soft bed in her chamber, staring at the ceiling. She had always been fragile. Her arms were thin, her legs weak, and even the smallest exertion left her breathless. The palace doctors often shook their heads, whispering worries to the king. They said she might never survive in the harsh world outside. King Therion walked, in quietly, his long robes rustling. His eyes, sharp and wise, softened as they fell on his daughter. "Liara," he said gently, "you must rest today. Your body cannot bear more strain." "I know, Father," Liara whispered, her voice small. But inside, she felt a spark of frustration. She wanted more than rest. She wanted to move freely, to run, to climb, to see the world. But every time she tried, someone stopped her. Guards, tutors, even her father. They all treated her like a fragile flower. The king sighed. "I fear for you," he admitted. "The galaxy is not kind to the weak. If you are to survive, you must be stronger." Liara's eyes widened. "Stronger?" she repeated. "But how? I cannot even lift a training rod." The king hesitated. Then he spoke with resolve. "I have arranged something. Someone will come who can teach you more than I can, more than any tutor here." Before Liara could ask, "Who?" a loud commotion sounded in the courtyard below. The princess ran to the balcony and saw a ship unlike any she had ever seen. It hovered gracefully, sleek and silver, with blue lights running along its edges. A single figure emerged from it, a human. Humans were rare in this galaxy. Most alien races considered them fragile, unpredictable, and somewhat reckless. But they were also known for courage, adaptability, and a strange determination that few could match. The figure descended from the ship. He was tall and strong, with broad shoulders and calm eyes that seemed to measure everything around him. His presence made even the palace guards uneasy. This was Joran, the human envoy. But he was no ordinary diplomat. He was a veteran warrior, trained in countless battles across human worlds. His reputation for fearlessness had reached King Therion, and the king had invited him for a very special purpose. Later that day, Joran was led into the princess's chamber. Liara sat on her bed, small and fragile compared to the human who now stood before her. "Hello, Princess Liara," Joran said, bowing slightly. "I am here to help you." Liara blinked. "Help me? How?" "Help you survive. Help you grow. Strong," he replied simply. "You may be small, but strength is not only in the body. Courage, focus, and determination matter more." The princess looked at him doubtfully. "I am weak. You cannot make me strong." Joran smiled faintly. "I can show you the way, but you must try." "Will you try, Liara?" Liara hesitated. She had never been asked to try before. Usually people tried for her, carried her, protected her. But something in Joran's eyes, steady and confident, stirred a tiny spark inside her. I will try," she said quietly. The first day of training was simple but exhausting. Joran made Liara stretch, hold herself steady, and try to lift rods that were light by human standards, but heavy for her. She fell many times. Her arms trembled, her legs shook, and more than once she wanted to give up. "Do not give up," Joran said calmly, catching her as she faltered. "Strength grows slowly. Every attempt matters." The palace staff watched nervously. Many whispered among themselves. "A human cannot teach a princess. This is madness," they said. But King Therion watched silently, hope and worry intertwined in his gaze. By the third day, Liara's arms could hold the rod longer. Her legs did not wobble as much when she stood. She felt small victories, so small that no one else might notice, but they were victories all the same. One evening, as the twin suns set and painted the sky in orange and pink, Liara and Joran walked along the palace gardens. The gardens were filled with exotic plants and softly glowing flowers. "Why are you helping me?" Liara asked. "You don't have to." Joran shook his head. "Because I know what it is to be underestimated. Humans are often seen as weak. You are often seen as fragile. But the galaxy respects courage, and courage can come from anyone, any shape, any size." Liara looked at him, feeling something new inside her. Respect, hope, a spark of determination. She wanted to believe him. "Will I ever be strong like you?" she asked. Joran smiled. "Stronger than me, maybe. Strength is not just muscle. It is will. It is mind. And you, Princess Liara, have a mind that can conquer worlds if you let it." For the first time in her life, Liara felt a tiny thrill of excitement. She wanted to see what she could do, what she could become. She wanted to be more than fragile. She wanted to be fearless. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Liara stood tall, her small frame illuminated by the garden lights. She still had a long journey ahead, and the path would not be easy. But for the first time, she knew she was not alone. A human warrior would guide her, and together they would face whatever challenges the galaxy threw at them. And so began the journey of the fragile princess, the journey that would one day turn her into a fearless warrior, remembered in legends across the stars. The morning sun rose over the palace of Viridian, spilling golden light over the towers and gardens. Princess Liara woke with a mixture of excitement and fear. Today, Joran had promised a new lesson, a challenge unlike anything she had tried before. When she arrived in the training hall, she saw that Joran had prepared an obstacle course. It was filled with low walls to climb, balance beams, ropes to swing from, and even small pits she would have to jump over. The course was simple for most adults, but for her, it looked impossible. Liara's heart pounded. She glanced at Joran. I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, her voice shaking. Joran's eyes were calm. "You will try. That is all I ask. Strength grows only when you face what seems impossible." Liara took a deep breath and stepped onto the first obstacle, a low wall. Her hands trembled as she reached for the top. She barely made it, slipping halfway and almost falling. But Joran was there, steady and patient, catching her when she faltered. "Good. That is your first success," he said. "Remember it. You are stronger than you think." The princess moved through the course, falling, stumbling, and getting back up again. Each obstacle tested her body, but more importantly, it tested her mind. She had to concentrate, to think, to plan each move. With Joran's guidance, she began to notice patterns, how to shift her weight, how to grab ropes, how to balance even when her legs shook. Hours passed. By midday, Liara was exhausted. Her arms burned, her legs ached, and her breathing was heavy. But something new had begun to grow inside her. Pride. She had climbed the walls, crossed the beams, and even jumped over the pit. It had been hard, but she had done it. "See?" Joran said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You can do more than you thought. Every failure teaches you something." Liara nodded, her chest swelling with a quiet joy. She felt alive in a way she had never felt before. After a short rest, Joran introduced a new exercise, combat training. He handed her a light practice weapon and demonstrated basic stances and strikes. At first, Liara's movements were clumsy. Her weapon often missed the target and her balance was poor, but Joran corrected her gently, showing her how to shift her weight, how to anticipate moves, and how to strike with confidence. "Combat is not just about hitting," he explained. "It is about thinking, observing, and reacting. It is as much the mind as the body." They practiced together, Joran moving slowly to match her speed, encouraging her with each successful block or strike. The court observers whispered among themselves. Many doubted that a fragile princess could ever learn to fight. But slowly, Liara began to improve. Her movements became more confident, more deliberate. In the evenings, Joren took her outside the palace walls, but only into safe areas of the gardens and nearby forests. He taught her how to walk quietly, how to notice signs of danger, and how to use her senses to understand the world around her. One evening, they were walking near a grove of glowing trees when a small creature darted across their path. It was fast and unpredictable. Liara froze, unsure what to do. "Observe," Joren whispered. "Do not react with fear. React with thought." Liara focused. She noticed the creature's patterns, the way it moved in short bursts, the sound of its claws against the rocks. Using a stick she picked up, she guided it gently away from the path. The creature hesitated, then ran into the bushes. "You did well," Joren said, smiling. "You did not panic. That is courage." Liara felt a thrill of accomplishment. For the first time, she realized that courage was not about being fearless. It was about acting even when you were afraid. Days turned into weeks. Liara's strength grew slowly but steadily. She could run longer, climb higher, and move faster than before. But more importantly, she was learning to trust herself. She began to think ahead, to plan, and to make decisions. The court began to notice small changes. The princess who had once trembled at every noise was now standing taller, moving with more confidence and speaking with a steadier voice. One afternoon, King Tharion visited the training hall. He watched quietly as Liara moved through. The Palace of Viridian was not only a place of beauty and splendor, it was also a center of power, politics, and danger. While Princess Liara trained and grew stronger each day, shadows moved in the corners of the empire. Rival factions watched, her carefully waiting for a moment of weakness. One morning, Joren woke Liara early. "Today we are going to practice situational awareness," he said. "You must learn to notice threats before they reach you. The galaxy is full of those who do not wish you well." Liara frowned. "Do you mean enemies will come here?" "Perhaps," Joren said. "But even if they do not, you must be ready. Awareness is a warrior's first defense." He led her to the outer walls of the palace. From there she could see the city spread below and the forests beyond. Joren handed her a small set of binoculars. "Look carefully," he instructed. "Notice movement patterns, unusual activity. A good warrior sees danger before it arrives." Liara raised the binoculars and studied the streets. At first, she saw only the usual bustle, flying carts, merchants, citizens hurrying to work. But after a few minutes, she noticed something odd. A group of cloaked figures moving against the flow of traffic, their movements deliberate and cautious. "Those figures," she whispered. They are avoiding others." "Good," Joren said. "You notice something most would ignore. That is the first step in defending yourself. Always trust what you see, but think about what it might mean." Before they could continue, an alarm sounded across the palace. Red lights flashed and guards shouted. Someone had breached the perimeter near the outer gardens. Liara's heart raced, but she did not panic. She glanced at Joren, who nodded sharply. "Stay close," he commanded. "Observe, think, act." They ran toward the commotion, Liara keeping low and quiet as Joren taught her how to move unseen. As they approached, they saw the intruders. 3 cloaked figures attempting to disable the palace security system. They were fast, skilled, and clearly trained for this kind of mission. Joren whispered instructions. "Use your training. Distract, observe, anticipate." Liara's small hands clutched the rod she had been practicing with. She remembered the balance exercises, the combat drills, the hours spent learning to think under pressure. With a deep breath, she moved forward silently, throwing a small stone to create noise on the opposite side. One intruder turned instantly and Joren struck quickly, disabling him with a precise move. The second intruder lunged toward Liara. For a moment, fear threatened to take over, but she steadied herself. She remembered Joran's words. Courage is acting even when you are afraid. She sidestepped, using the intruder's momentum against him, and tripped him with a calculated kick. The third intruder hesitated, seeing both the human warrior and the princess ready for him. He retreated, disappearing into the shadows before reinforcements arrived. Joran placed a hand on Liara's shoulder. You did well. You stayed calm, observed, and acted. That is courage. That is strategy. That is what makes a warrior. Liara's chest heaved, not just from exertion but from exhilaration. For the first time, she had faced real danger and survived, not because someone else protected her, but because she had acted herself. King Tharion arrived moments later, along with the palace guards. He watched the scene, his face a mixture of pride and astonishment. Liara, you faced intruders. You defended yourself. His voice faltered. He had never imagined his fragile daughter could act like this. Liara looked at her father, a mixture of fear and pride in her eyes. I trained for this, she said softly. Joran taught me. Joran shook his head. She did the work. I only guided her. The king stepped forward and placed his hands on Liara's shoulders. Perhaps I underestimated you, he admitted. Perhaps the galaxy's threats are not as dangerous as I feared if you face them with courage. After the intrusion, Joran continued Liara's training with renewed intensity. He introduced new exercises focused on agility, observation, and quick decision-making. Liara began to anticipate dangers before they happened, noticing subtle signs in her environment that others overlooked. One afternoon, they practiced in the palace gardens. Joran released a small mechanical drone designed to simulate an attack. Liara moved swiftly, dodging, blocking, and using her environment strategically. She managed to disable the drone before it reached her, a feat that even some adult warriors would struggle to achieve. You are learning to think like a warrior, Joran said proudly. Strength is not only muscles, it is your mind, your instincts, your ability to stay calm and act. Liara smiled. I think I am beginning to understand I am not just learning to fight, I am learning to survive and to lead. Joran nodded. Exactly. Every warrior must know how to survive, and every leader must know how to inspire others. You can be both. That evening, Liara stood on the palace balcony, gazing at the glowing city below. She felt a new sense of purpose. The shadows of threat were real, but she no longer felt helpless. Each lesson, each challenge, and each small victory had built her confidence. King Tharion approached quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. You have faced danger today and grown stronger. I am proud, Liara. Perhaps you are more capable than I ever imagined. Liara turned to him, her eyes shining. I want to become stronger, Father. I want to face whatever comes and protect those who cannot protect themselves. The king nodded, his eyes misty with pride. Then you shall have my full support. And Joran, you have my thanks. You are teaching her not just to survive, but to thrive. Joran smiled faintly. It is her courage that makes the difference. My guidance is only the spark. As the stars appeared above the twin suns of Viridian, Liara felt a fire within her heart. The galaxy was full of threats and uncertainty, but she was no longer the fragile princess who hid behind palace walls. She was becoming someone who could act, defend, and inspire. The shadows of threat were real, but they no longer frightened her. With courage, training, and determination, she knew she could face whatever lay ahead. And Joran, watching quietly beside her, knew that Liara's journey had only just begun. The fragile princess was becoming a fearless warrior, and the galaxy would soon take notice. For weeks, Princess Liara had trained relentlessly under Joran's guidance. She had learned agility, strategy, and courage, yet Joran knew that real growth required experiences beyond the palace walls. Liara, Joran said one morning, you are strong inside the palace, but the galaxy is not a palace. Outside there are dangers, challenges, and lessons that cannot be taught here. It is time for you to see the world." Liara's heart raced. She had never left the safety of the palace, except for short trips into the gardens or nearby forests. The thought of traveling beyond her home into strange lands and unknown dangers filled her with both fear and excitement. "Where will we go?" she asked softly. "To other worlds," Joran replied. "To see how humans survive. To see how different species live. You will learn not only to fight, but to think, adapt, and survive." The first stop was a human colony on a nearby planet. The landscape was harsh. Rocky terrain, strong winds, and an unforgiving sun. Liara stumbled on her first steps across the rough ground, but Joran encouraged her. "Balance yourself. Observe the terrain. One wrong step can hurt you," he instructed. Humans there were surprised to see an alien princess. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with suspicion. They did not know her or her story, and some whispered that she was fragile and untrained. Liara felt the sting of doubt, but she remembered her training. She straightened her back, met their eyes confidently, and walked with poise. "Do not let others define you," Joran whispered. "Your actions define you, not their assumptions." During the first days, Liara faced several challenges. She climbed cliffs, crossed rivers, and navigated dense forests. The humans taught her survival techniques, how to find food and water, how to move quietly, and how to anticipate dangers in the wild. At first she struggled, falling into streams and tripping over rocks, but each mistake taught her something new. One evening, while they camped under the stars, a wild creature approached their group. It was large and fast, with sharp claws and glowing eyes. The human guards tensed, preparing to attack. Liara remembered Joran's lessons. She stayed calm, observing the creature's movements. Slowly, she picked up a branch, using it to guide the animal away without provoking it. The creature hesitated, then disappeared into the darkness. Joran looked at her, impressed. "You acted with thought, not fear. That is how a warrior survives outside safety." The journey continued to alien planets, each with unique dangers. On a desert world, Liara learned to withstand extreme heat and sandstorms. On a frozen moon, she learned to conserve warmth and ration energy. On every world, she faced challenges that tested her body, mind, and courage. But the greatest lessons were not physical. Liara witnessed the diversity of life, the different cultures, and the struggles of beings who had to survive without protection. She saw species that adapted quickly, species that used clever tactics, and species that thrived in harsh conditions. "Look and learn," Joran said, as they watched a group of nomads cleverly trap predators for food. Survival is not just strength. It is observation, planning, and using your mind. That is why humans and you can thrive anywhere. The city of Viridian was quiet at first light, but the calm did not last. Scouts had reported unusual movements on the outskirts of the empire. Liara, now stronger and sharper than ever, sensed the tension in the air. She stood beside Joran on the palace balcony, watching the horizon. "They are coming," Joran said quietly. "The invading fleet is large and well-trained. This will be a real test, Liara." Her chest tightened, but she did not falter. The months of training, the lessons, beyond the palace, and the countless obstacles she had overcome gave her a quiet confidence. She was ready to face the threat. Within hours, the alarms rang across the palace. Red lights flashed, and the sound of warships approaching echoed through the city. The invaders had chosen this moment to strike, hoping to catch the palace off guard. Joran quickly gathered a team of elite guards, and Liara joined them without hesitation. She gripped her weapon, her eyes scanning every corridor, every hallway, anticipating danger before it arrived. The first wave of attackers breached the outer gates. Liara and the defenders moved swiftly, using tactics she had learned from Joran. She dodged energy blasts, rolled past armored enemies, and struck with precision. Every movement was calculated, every decision deliberate. One intruder lunged at her, but she sidestepped and used his momentum to send him tumbling. The guards around her began to notice her courage. Whispers spread. The princess fights alongside us. Jaren stayed close, guiding her when necessary, but allowing her to make decisions. Lead, Liara, he whispered. Use what you have learned. Show them your strength. Liara moved through the palace like a shadow. She anticipated enemy attacks, set simple traps using debris from the damaged halls, and directed the guards to strategic positions. Her small size and quick reflexes made her unpredictable. The invaders underestimated her, and that mistake gave the defenders an advantage. Hours passed in a blur of combat. Smoke filled the corridors, alarms blared, and the palace shook from distant explosions. Yet Liara remained focused. She remembered Joran's lessons. Stay calm, think fast, and act decisively. At the heart of the palace, she spotted the enemy commander, directing forces from a raised platform. She knew that stopping him could turn the tide of battle. She signaled to the guards and moved forward with determination. The commander saw her approach and laughed, thinking her too small to be a threat. But Liara was no longer the fragile princess he imagined. With speed and strategy, she dodged his guards, used the walls for leverage, and confronted him directly. In a swift move, she disarmed him, forcing him to retreat under the guards. Control. The remaining invaders faltered, their morale shattered. The palace defenders rallied behind Liara, inspired by her courage and leadership. The invaders began to retreat, and soon the palace was secure. King Tharion arrived at the main hall, witnessing the aftermath. His daughter, once feared fragile, stood among the defenders, her chest heaving from exertion, but her eyes shining with determination. Pride and awe filled him. Liara, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You have defended the throne, the palace, and our people. You have shown courage beyond your years. You are no longer just my daughter. You are a warrior. Liara bowed, still catching her breath. I could not have done it alone, Father. Joran guided me every step, but I made the choices. Joran shook his head with a small smile. The choices were hers. I only provided the lessons. She acted with courage and intelligence. That evening, as the fires from minor damage were extinguished and the wounded were cared for, Liara stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The lights of Viridian shimmered in the dusk, and she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. I never imagined I could do this, she admitted softly to Joran. You have learned more than combat, he replied. You have learned to lead, to think quickly, to inspire others. Today, you were more than a fighter. You were a protector. Liara's gaze lifted toward the horizon. She could feel the weight of responsibility, but also the strength that had grown inside her. The princess who had once trembled at small noises was now a figure of courage and leadership. King Tharion joined her quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. The galaxy will remember this day. Your bravery and leadership will inspire generations. You are no longer just a princess. You are a symbol of courage. Liara smiled faintly, feeling the truth of his words. I will continue to grow, Father. I will protect this empire and its people. And I will not stop until I am ready for any challenge that comes. Joran watched her silently, pride filling his heart. The fragile girl he had first met months ago had transformed into a fearless warrior, a leader capable of guiding others and standing against any threat. As the twin moons of Viridian rose over the palace, Liara stood tall. She had faced real danger, survived, and led others through chaos. She was no longer fragile. She was no longer just a princess. She was a warrior, a protector, and a symbol of hope. And Joran knew, quietly but surely, that this was only the beginning. Liara's strength, courage, and leadership would leave a lasting mark on the empire, and the human legacy that had guided her would be remembered for generations to come. Months had passed since the siege of Viridian, and the palace had begun to recover. Repairs were made, the city rebuilt, and the people celebrated the courage of those who had defended their home. But no one's courage shone brighter than Princess Liara's. She had grown stronger, faster, and wiser. Her body was no longer fragile. Her mind was sharp and her heart was filled with determination. The princess who had once trembled at the smallest sound now stood tall, commanding respect from soldiers, citizens, and even the most hardened warriors. Joran, ever her guide, watched quietly from the training hall as Liara led drills with the palace guards. She moved with precision, giving clear instructions and correcting mistakes with calm authority. The guards listened, inspired by her skill and courage. "You have become remarkable," Joran said, approaching her after the session. "I always knew you had potential, but you've surpassed even my expectations." Liara smiled, a mixture of pride and humility. "I could not have done it without your guidance, Joran. You showed me the way, but now I feel ready. Ready to face anything." Joran nodded. "And you will. But remember, a warrior's journey never ends. There will always be new challenges, new dangers. What matters is that you face them with courage and wisdom." That evening, King Tharion called Liara to the council chamber. The elders and leaders of Viridian had gathered. The king stood, his voice carrying authority and pride. "Liara," he began, "the galaxy has seen your courage. You have faced threats, led defenders, and protected our people. Today we honor you not only as a princess but as a true warrior and a leader of this empire." Liara felt a wave of emotion. She bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Father. I am honored, but I am only one part of what protects this kingdom. Joran taught me lessons I could not have learned elsewhere." Joran smiled quietly, letting her words acknowledge both his guidance and her achievements. The king continued, "We will establish a new order of defenders, trained under Liara's guidance. She will lead them, and together, we will ensure the safety and prosperity of Viridian for generations to come." Liara's eyes widened. She had never imagined leading an order of warriors. But the thought thrilled her. She could use her knowledge, her courage, and her experience to train others to protect the kingdom and to inspire the galaxy. "Do you accept this responsibility?" the king asked. Liara nodded firmly. "I accept, Father. I will train them, protect them, and ensure they are ready for any challenge." The council erupted in applause, and even the palace guards who had once doubted her bowed in respect. Liara had transformed not only herself, but the perception of what a princess and a human-taught warrior could achieve. Days later, she began her first training session for the new order. The recruits were nervous, unsure of what to expect, but Liara approached them with calm authority, demonstrating techniques, sharing strategies, and inspiring them with her own experiences. "You will face challenges," she said, "both on the battlefield and in your mind. You must trust your instincts, think quickly, and act with courage. Strength is not only in the body, it is in your will, your mind, and your heart." The recruits listened, captivated. They could see in her the proof of her words, someone who had transformed from fragile to fearless, someone who had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. Outside the palace, news of Liara's achievements spread throughout the galaxy. Humans and aliens alike began to respect her courage, wisdom, and leadership. Stories circulated of the princess who had been fragile but was made fearless through human guidance and her own determination. One evening, as Liara stood on the balcony, overlooking the city, Joran joined her. The twin moons reflected their light on the towers, and the air was calm after the storm of recent battles. "You have done more than I imagined," Joran said quietly. "You have inspired a kingdom, changed the perception of what a princess can be, and built a legacy that will last." Liara smiled. "It is not just me, Joran. Humans taught me courage, strategy, and adaptability, but I had to make the choice to act. I had to push myself every day." Joran placed a hand on her shoulder. "That choice, that determination, is the human legacy, and now you carry it forward, not just in yourself, but in every warrior you train, every tech, and every